The moment Deanna Foster walked through the glass doors of her family's estate with Connor Nash at her side, she knew the carefully constructed world her parents had built for her was about to shatter into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Her mother stood in the foyer, champagne flute frozen halfway to her lips, eyes widening at the sight of the man beside Deanna. Not the polished corporate air they had been parading in front of her for months, but a different man entirely. A man in worn jeans and a leather jacket, with calloused hands and an easy confidence that came from building things with those hands rather than shuffling papers across mahogany desks. Deanna. Her mother's voice carried that particular tone, the one that could freeze water at 20 paces. "We weren't expecting you to bring a guest." Connor squeezed Deanna's hand gently, a silent reassurance. She had warned him about this, about them, about everything. But he had insisted on coming anyway, on meeting the family that had shaped her into the woman she was, even if that woman was trying desperately to reshape herself into something more authentic. "Mom, Dad, this is Connor Nash. Connor, these are my parents, Margaret and Richard Foster." Her father set down his scotch with deliberate precision. "Nash." He turned the name over like it was something distasteful. "I don't believe I've heard that name in our circles." "That's because I'm not in your circles, sir." Connor's voice was respectful but firm. "I own a construction company. We build things. Actual buildings, not portfolios." The silence that followed was deafening. Diana's younger sister, Emma, appeared at the top of the stairs, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. She had always been the sympathetic one, the bridge between Diana and their parents' impossible expectations. Diana had met Connor 6 months ago on what was supposed to be the worst day of her life. She had just walked out of a board meeting where her own family had voted against her proposal to expand their pharmaceutical company's charitable giving program. The Foster name meant wealth, prestige, and pharmaceutical excellence spanning 3 generations. It also meant quarterly profits took precedence over everything else, including conscience. She had been standing in the rain outside a coffee shop, having forgotten her umbrella in her fury, when a truck had pulled up beside her. Not a sleek sedan or a luxury car, but an actual work truck with mud on the tires and equipment in the back. "You need a ride." The man driving had the kind of face that belonged in old movies, strong jawline, dark eyes that crinkled at the corners, a hint of stubble that suggested he had more important things to worry about than perfect grooming. "I'm fine," she had said automatically, the way she had been trained to deflect anything that might be perceived as weakness. "You're getting soaked. I'm not a serial killer, I promise. Just a guy who doesn't like seeing people get drenched when I have a perfectly good truck with a heater." Something about his directness, the lack of pretense, had made her laugh. Actually laugh for the first time in months. She had climbed into that truck, and Connor had driven her home while they talked about everything except who she was or what she did. He told her about the restoration project his company was working on, an old theater downtown that was being converted into a community center. She told him about her frustration with corporate bureaucracy, carefully avoiding specifics. When they arrived at her building, a high rise in the financial district, he had raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Instead, he had handed her a business card. "In case you ever need a ride again, or just want to talk to someone who builds things instead of tearing them down." She had called him 3 days later, not for a ride but because she couldn't stop thinking about that conversation, about the way he had listened without judgment or agenda. They met for coffee, then dinner, then more dinners. Connor treated her like a person, not a Foster, not an heiress to a pharmaceutical empire, just Deanna. It was intoxicating. 2 months in, she finally told him about her family, about the company, about the expectations that felt like chains wrapped around her chest. He had listened, really listened, and then said something that changed everything. So quit. It's not that simple, she had protested. Why not? You're miserable. Life's too short to spend it making other people happy at the expense of your own sanity. But she hadn't quit. Instead, she had started fighting harder, pushing for changes, trying to prove that the company could be both profitable and ethical. Her parents saw it as rebellion. Her board saw it as naivety. Only Emma seemed to understand that Diana was trying to save the family legacy from itself. Now, standing in her parents' home with Connor beside her, Diana realized that this moment had been inevitable from the start. She couldn't keep the two worlds separate forever. "Dinner is ready," her mother announced, her smile as brittle as spun sugar. "Shall we?" The dining room was everything Connor's world wasn't. Crystal chandeliers, fine china, staff who moved like ghosts through the spaces between people. Diana watched Connor take it all in, wondering what he was thinking. But his expression remained calm, almost amused. Her father wasted no time. "So, Mr. Nash, tell us about your construction company. How large is your operation?" "We've got about 40 employees right now. Good people. Most of them have been with me since I started the company 8 years ago." 8 years. Her mother's tone suggested this was roughly equivalent to 8 minutes in terms of business credibility. "And your revenue?" "Mom," Diana interjected, but Connor touched her arm gently. "It's fine. We cleared about 12 million last year. Not pharmaceutical money, but we do honest work and we do it well." Diana's father actually laughed, a sharp bark of sound. 12 million. Diana, your clothing budget is half that. Heat flooded Diana's cheeks, but not from embarrassment, from anger. "My clothing budget is ridiculous, and you know it. Connor's built his company from nothing. He employs people, creates value, contributes to communities. That means something." "What means something," her mother said coldly, "is maintaining the standards of this family. We had hopes you would settle down with someone appropriate. Marcus Whitmore has been very patient." "Marcus Whitmore is boring and entitled and cares more about mergers than people," Diana shot back. "I'm not interested in Marcus. I'm interested in Connor." Emma had been quiet throughout the exchange, but now she spoke up. "Maybe we should talk about something else. Connor, Diana mentioned you're working on the old Paramount Theater downtown. That's such a beautiful building." Connor gave Emma a grateful smile. "It is. Built in 1928, original Art Deco features. We're restoring it while modernizing the infrastructure. It's going to be a community center, performance space, after-school programs for kids. The kind of project that actually matters. Charity work." Diana's father waved his hand dismissively. "Noble, I suppose, but hardly a foundation for a substantial future." "With all due respect, sir, I disagree. I've got contracts lined up for the next 3 years. My company's financially sound, my reputation's solid, and I sleep well at night knowing I'm building things that improve people's lives. I'd call that a pretty substantial foundation." The muscle in her father's jaw twitched. "You must understand our concern. Diana is our daughter. She's been raised in a certain environment with certain expectations. You come from a completely different world." "I do," Connor agreed. "And maybe that's exactly what she needs." "How dare you," Margaret Foster breathed, setting down her fork with a sharp clink. "You have no idea what Diana needs. You've known her for what, a few months? We've known her for 28 years. And in those 28 years, have you ever asked her what she wants?" Connor's voice remained steady, but there was steel underneath. "Because from what she's told me, you've spent most of that time telling her what she should want." Diana's heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to be angry at Connor for being so confrontational, but God help her, he was right. They had never asked. They had only ever instructed. "I think we should go," Deanna said quietly, standing up. This was clearly a mistake. "Deanna, sit down." Her father's voice carried the authority of boardrooms and balance sheets. "We need to discuss this rationally." "There's nothing to discuss. I care about Connor. He makes me happy." "That should be enough." "Happiness is a luxury, not a foundation," her mother said. "You'll thank us later when you've come to your senses." Emma stood as well. "Mom, Dad, maybe you should listen to her. Deanna's never been happier than she's been these past few months, I've noticed." "Everyone's noticed except you two." "Emma, this doesn't concern you," their father snapped. "She's my sister. Of course it concerns me." Deanna felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not here, not now. Connor, let's go." They left through the front door, ignoring her mother's calls to come back and discuss this properly. Diana's hands shook as she climbed into Connor's truck. The familiar worn leather seats a comfort after the rigid formality of her parents' dining room. Connor didn't start the engine immediately. Instead, he turned to her, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "You were honest. They needed to hear it." "I could have been more diplomatic." Deanna laughed, a sound halfway between amusement and despair. "Diplomacy doesn't work with them. Trust me, I've tried for years." "What do you want to do?" It was such a simple question, but it carried the weight of everything. What did she want? She wanted her family to accept Connor, to see him the way she did. But more than that, she wanted to stop seeking their approval for every decision, every choice, every breath. "I want to go to your place," she said. "I want to forget about all of this for a few hours." Connor lived in a converted warehouse in an up-and-coming neighborhood, the kind of place her parents would call shabby. Deanna thought it was perfect. Exposed brick, high ceilings, furniture that looked comfortable rather than expensive. It felt like a home rather than a showcase. She collapsed onto his couch while he made tea, a habit he had picked up from his mother, he had told her once. His mother, who had raised him, and his two younger brothers alone after his father died in a construction accident when Connor was 15. His mother, who had worked 2 jobs to keep them fed and housed, who had taught Connor that real wealth was measured in integrity and kindness rather than bank balances. "Here." He handed her a mug, settling beside her. "Talk to me." "I knew they wouldn't approve." "I just hoped that maybe, if they met you, they would see what I see." "And what do you see?" She turned to look at him, really look at him. The strong hands that could swing a hammer or hold her with infinite gentleness. The eyes that looked at her like she was the most important thing in the world. The quiet confidence that came from knowing exactly who he was and refusing to apologize for it. "I see someone real, someone good, someone who makes me want to be better." Connor set his mug down and pulled her close. She tucked herself against his chest, breathing in the scent of him, sawdust and soap and something indefinably Connor. His heart beat steady under her ear, an anchor in the storm. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know we haven't said it yet, but I do. I love you, Deanna. Not your name or your money or your connections, just you." The tears came then, hot and fast and relieving. "I love you too, so much. I'm sorry about tonight. Don't apologize for them. You're not responsible for their choices." But she felt responsible. She felt responsible for everything, the weight of 3 generations of foster expectations pressing down on her shoulders. Her grandfather had started the company with a single patent and a dream. Her father had expanded it into an empire. And she was supposed to be the next chapter, the one who took it even further. Except she didn't want that chapter anymore. She wanted a different story entirely. Over the next few weeks, the fallout from that dinner continued. Her mother called daily, leaving increasingly terse voicemails about Deanna needing to prioritize family and duty. Her father cut her expense accounts, a petty power play that would have been more effective if Diana hadn't been financially independent thanks to her own salary and investments. Even the board started whispering, wondering if Richard Foster's daughter was becoming unreliable. Only Emma stood by her. She would meet Diana for lunch, usually at some little cafe far from their usual haunts, and they would talk honestly for the first time in years. "They're scared," Emma said over soup and sandwiches one rainy Tuesday. "They've controlled everything for so long, and now you're slipping away and they don't know how to handle it." "I'm not slipping away. I'm just trying to live my own life," which to them is the same thing. Emma stirred her soup absently. "You know they're talking about removing you from the board." Diana's stomach dropped. "What?" "Dad's been having conversations, quiet ones, about whether you're still committed to the company's vision." Emma reached across the table, squeezing Diana's hand. "I thought you should know. The board position wasn't just about power or money. It was about having a voice, about being able to push for the changes she believed in. Without it, she would be completely shut out of the company that bore her name." "Let them try," Diana said, but her voice shook. "I've worked my entire adult life for that company. My proposals have increased efficiency by 30%. My charitable initiatives have improved our public image and opened new markets. They can't just erase that because they don't like my boyfriend. They can try, and you know Dad. When he sets his mind to something, he usually gets it." Diana drove to Connor's worksite after lunch, needing to see him to ground herself in something real. The Paramount Theater was a hive of activity, workers everywhere, the sound of construction echoing through the ornate lobby. She found Connor on the second floor, consulting with his foreman about load-bearing walls. He saw her and his expression shifted immediately to concern. "Hey, what's wrong? Can we talk?" They found a quiet corner in what would eventually be a dance studio. Through the tall windows, Diana could see the city stretching out below, all glass and steel and ambition. "My family's trying to remove me from the board," she said without preamble. "Because of us. Because I won't fall in line." Connor's jaw tightened. "Diana, I never wanted to come between you and your career. You're not. They are. They're the ones making this an ultimatum." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Part of me wants to fight, but another part wonders if this is the universe telling me it's time to walk away." "Walk away from the company. I've been thinking about it more and more. What if I started something new? Something that's actually mine, not just another chapter in the Foster legacy." "What would you do?" Diana had been asking herself that question for months. "Remember how I mentioned wanting to expand the charitable giving program? What if I started a nonprofit instead, focused on making medications accessible to underserved communities? I know the industry, I have the connections, and I actually care about the cause." She could see Connor thinking it through, considering the implications. "That would be a huge change, I know, and it's terrifying. But maybe terrifying is good. Maybe I've been playing it safe for too long. If you do this, you need to do it for the right reasons. Not because your parents are being unreasonable, but because it's genuinely what you want." That was Connor, always cutting through to the heart of things. "I think it is what I want. I think I've wanted it for a long time but been too afraid to admit it. Then I support you. Whatever you decide, I'm here." She kissed him then, there in that unfinished dance studio with sawdust in the air and the sounds of construction all around them. He kissed her back, strong and steady and sure. And for the first time since that disastrous dinner, Diana felt like maybe everything would be okay. But making the decision and acting on it were two different things. Diana spent the next month preparing, working late nights on a business plan, reaching out to contacts in the nonprofit sector, researching funding models and grant opportunities. She didn't tell her parents, didn't give them ammunition to use against her. Connor was patient through all of it, bringing her food when she forgot to eat, rubbing her shoulders when the stress made them tight, reminding her why she was doing this when doubt crept in at 3 in the morning. "You're going to change lives," he told her one night, reading through her proposal. "This isn't just a good idea, Deanna. It's a great one. You're talking about creating a sustainable model for drug accessibility that could be replicated nationwide. This could be your real legacy." His faith in her was humbling. He believed in her vision without reservation, without qualification. Her parents had spent years telling her what she was capable of, but Connor simply saw it and reflected it back to her. The confrontation came on a Thursday. Deanna was called to an emergency board meeting, and she knew what was coming. She dressed carefully that morning, armor in the form of a sharp suit and her mother's pearls, the ones that had belonged to her grandmother. If they were going to push her out, she would go down swinging. The boardroom was full when she arrived. Her father sat at the head of the table, her mother beside him. Marcus Whitmore was there too, looking smugly satisfied in a way that made Deanna's skin crawl. She had suspected he was behind some of this, still bitter that she had rejected his advances months ago. "Deanna, thank you for coming." Her father's formality was a bad sign. "We need to discuss your continued position on this board." "By all means, let's discuss it," Deanna said, taking her seat. "There's been concern about your commitment to this company. Missed meetings, delayed reports, and your personal associations have raised questions about your judgment. I've missed 2 meetings in 5 years, both for legitimate reasons. My reports have never been delayed. And my personal associations are none of this board's business." Marcus leaned forward. "When those associations affect your performance and judgment, they become our business. We need board members who are fully invested in the Foster Pharmaceuticals vision." "I've been invested in that vision my entire adult life, more invested than most people at this table." Deanna met her father's eyes. "But if by invested you mean willing to prioritize profit over people, then no, I'm not invested anymore. I can't be part of a company that prices life-saving medications out of reach of the people who need them most." "So you admit you're no longer committed to this company's success," her father said. "I'm committed to a version of success that includes a conscience." "Apparently that makes me unfit for this board." Her mother spoke up, her voice cold. "Deanna, you're being dramatic. This company has provided everything for you: education, opportunities, security, and you're willing to throw it all away for some construction worker. His name is Connor. And I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing a different path, one that actually aligns with my values." Values. Her father practically spat the word. "Let me tell you about values. This company employs thousands of people. It develops medications that save lives. Yes, we charge what the market will bear because that's how we fund research and development. That's how capitalism works, Deanna. If you're too naive to understand that, then perhaps you don't belong here." Deanna stood, placing both hands on the table. "You're right. I don't belong here. Not anymore. So let me make this easy for everyone. I resign from the board effective immediately." The room erupted. Several board members started talking at once. Her mother gasped, and her father's face turned an alarming shade of red. "You can't just resign," he thundered. "I can, and I just did. You'll have my formal resignation letter by end of business today." Deanna gathered her things, her hands surprisingly steady. "I'm starting my own nonprofit focused on medication accessibility. I'll be competing with Foster Pharmaceuticals for grants and partnerships, and I'll be doing it with a clear conscience. So you'd better lawyer up." She walked out before anyone could respond, her heels clicking on the marble floor, her heart pounding but her head clear. She had just blown up her entire life, and it felt like freedom. Diana went straight to the theater. She found Connor in the basement, working on the electrical system with one of his guys. He took one look at her face and dismissed the electrician. "What happened?" "I quit. Resigned from the board, told my father I'm starting a competing nonprofit, and basically burned every bridge in spectacular fashion." She laughed, a little hysterically. "I think I might be having a breakdown." Connor pulled her close, not caring that his hands were dirty or that she was in an expensive suit. "That's not a breakdown, that's a breakthrough." She clung to him, breathing hard. "I just walked away from everything. My family, my career, my entire identity. What if I fail? What if the nonprofit doesn't work and I've sacrificed everything for nothing? Then you'll have tried. And trying for something you believe in is never nothing." He pulled back to look at her. "Diana, you're one of the smartest, most determined people I've ever met. If anyone can make this work, it's you. And whatever happens, you're not alone, you've got me. I love you," she said fiercely. "I love you so much. I love you too. Now let's get out of here. I'm taking you to dinner, somewhere expensive where you can spend some of that Foster money while you still have the name." She laughed, real laughter this time. "That's probably the most practical thing you've ever said." They went to a steakhouse, nothing fancy but good food and better company. Deanna's phone buzzed constantly with calls and texts, her parents, board members, even Emma asking if she was okay. She ignored all of them except Emma, sending her a quick text that she was fine and would call tomorrow. "So what's the first step?" Connor asked over medium rare ribeye. "File the paperwork for the nonprofit. That's already in progress. Then I need to secure initial funding, probably from my own savings to start. Build a team, reach out to healthcare providers in underserved areas, negotiate with pharmaceutical companies for better pricing, or develop a grant program to subsidize costs." She stabbed a piece of steak. "It's going to be an uphill battle. The pharmaceutical industry doesn't like people rocking the boat. Good thing you're not afraid of a fight. I'm terrified of a fight, but I'm more terrified of waking up 20 years from now and realizing I wasted my life maintaining a system I don't believe in." Connor raised his beer. "To not wasting your life." She clinked her wine glass against it. "To building something better." The next few months were a blur of activity. Deanna threw herself into the nonprofit with the same intensity she had once brought to Foster Pharmaceuticals. She called it Hope Bridge, a name Emma suggested during one of their coffee meetings. The goal was simple but ambitious: connect people who needed expensive medications with resources to afford them, whether through manufacturer assistance programs, grants, or negotiated reduced pricing. Connor was her rock through all of it. When she worked 16-hour days and forgot to eat, he showed up with food. When she doubted herself at 2 in the morning, he talked her through it. When she celebrated small victories like securing their first major donation, he celebrated with her. Her parents, predictably, were furious. Her father tried to freeze her trust fund, only to discover she had transferred most of it into her own accounts years ago. Her mother spread rumors through their social circle about Deanna having a breakdown, throwing away her future for an inappropriate relationship. The Foster name that had once opened doors now sometimes closed them, as people chose sides in the family drama, but other doors opened. Deanna's story resonated with people tired of corporate greed and family dynasties. Young professionals reached out, wanting to volunteer or donate. Healthcare workers shared their frustrations with the system and offered to help. Even some pharmaceutical companies, smaller ones trying to build better reputations, agreed to participate in Hope Bridge programs. 6 months after that confrontation in the boardroom, Hope Bridge secured a major grant from a technology billionaire who had watched his own mother struggle to afford her medications. It was enough funding to hire a small staff and expand operations from Diana's apartment to an actual office space. Connor helped with the build-out, naturally. He refused to charge for his time, saying it was his contribution to the cause. His crew volunteered too, showing up on weekends to paint walls and install shelving, turning a bare commercial space into Hope Bridge's headquarters. Diana stood in the middle of the new office on moving day, surrounded by boxes and possibility. Emma was there helping, having distanced herself from their parents' increasingly bitter campaign against Diana's choices. "This is real," Emma said, looking around. "You actually did it." "We did it," Diana corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you or Connor, or all the people who believed in the mission." Connor emerged from the back room carrying more shelving. "Where do you want this?" "Anywhere, I don't care. I'm just happy we have an actual office." Diana went to him, kissing him despite Emma's presence. "Thank you for everything. You keep thanking me, but you did all the hard work. You made it possible for me to do the hard work. There's a difference." Emma cleared her throat. "You two are disgustingly cute. Also, Mom called me again this morning. She's still trying to get me to convince you to come home, apologize, and get back on the board." "That's never going to happen," Diana said firmly. "I know, I told her that. She's not listening." Emma hesitated. "Do you miss them? Mom and Dad?" Diana considered the question honestly. "I miss the idea of them. I miss having parents who support me. But the actual them, the ones who value appearances over authenticity and money over morals. No, I don't miss that. Dad's not doing well," Emma said quietly. "Since you left, there's been a lot of upheaval at the company. Some of the initiatives you had pushed for are failing without you there to implement them. The board is questioning his leadership." Diana felt a small, petty stab of satisfaction that she wasn't proud of. "That's not my problem anymore." "I know. I just thought you should know." 3 more months passed. Hope Bridge grew, helping hundreds of people access the medications they needed. Diana appeared on local news programs, wrote op-eds about pharmaceutical pricing, and became a vocal advocate for reform. She was building her own legacy, one that had nothing to do with the Foster name. Connor's theater project finished, and the grand opening was a community celebration. Diana stood in the restored lobby, admiring the Art Deco details and the care that had gone into every element. "It's beautiful," she told Connor. "Everything you said it would be. Stick around for the kids' performance tonight." That's the real beauty, seeing this place used the way it was meant to be. She did stay, watching a group of teenagers perform scenes from a play they had written themselves. Their energy and enthusiasm filled the space, giving it life. This was what Connor had meant about building things that mattered. These kids had a safe place to create, to grow, to become. After the performance, Connor took her hand and led her onto the stage, now empty. "I've been thinking," he said, about how this theater is the best thing I've ever built, except it's not actually. The best thing I've ever built is this relationship with you, this partnership." Diana's heart started beating faster. "Connor." He pulled a small box from his pocket and her breath caught. "I'm not a guy who does things traditionally. I don't have a fortune or a fancy name or connections. But I have love, Diana. So much love for you that sometimes I don't know what to do with it all. You're the strongest, bravest, most compassionate person I know. And I want to spend the rest of my life building something beautiful with you." He opened the box, revealing a simple ring, a single diamond set in white gold, elegant without being ostentatious. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Diana breathed. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her. there on the stage of the theater he had built, under the lights he had wired, in the space he had transformed from decay to possibility. It felt like a metaphor for everything they were building together. They told Emma first, who cried and hugged them both and said it was about time. They told Connor's mother, who welcomed Diana like the daughter she had always wanted. They told the Hope Bridge staff, who cheered and immediately started planning an engagement party. They did not tell Diana's parents, not immediately, but word spread quickly in their interconnected world. 2 weeks after the proposal, Diana's mother called. "Is it true?" Margaret Foster's voice was tight. "Are you engaged to that man? His name is Connor, and yes, I am." "We're getting married." Silence on the other end of the line. Then, "Your father wants to see you." "I'm not interested in another lecture about my life choices." "Diana, please, just come to dinner. Hear what he has to say." There was something in her mother's voice, a note Diana couldn't quite identify. Not the usual imperious command, but something closer to pleading. "Fine. One dinner. But Connor comes with me." "Of course," her mother said, which was surprising in itself. Diana told Connor about the invitation with trepidation. "We don't have to go if you don't want to. I can say no." "No, we should go. Maybe it's time for another conversation. We're all adults. We should be able to have a civil dinner." Diana wasn't convinced, but she agreed. They showed up at her parents' house on Saturday evening, both dressed nicely but not formally. Diana wore her ring prominently, a statement of intention. Her father opened the door himself, no staff in sight. He looked older than Diana remembered, more tired. "Diana, Mr. Nash. Thank you for coming." The dining room was set simply, just 4 places. Her parents sat across from them, and for a long moment no one spoke. Finally, her father cleared his throat. "I owe you both an apology. Particularly you, Mr. Nash. Connor, I was dismissive and rude. I judged you based on preconceptions rather than character, and that was wrong." Diana stared at him, shocked. Richard Foster did not apologize. "Ever. The past few months have been difficult," her mother added. "Watching you build Hope Bridge, seeing the impact you're having, reading about you in the papers. You're doing exactly what you said you would do, making a difference, building something meaningful. We've been forced to confront some uncomfortable truths," her father continued. "About the company, about our priorities, about what we actually want our legacy to be. Diana, you were right about a lot of things. We've been so focused on profit margins that we lost sight of purpose. And we've been so concerned with appearances that we failed to see what actually matters." "Which is?" Diana asked, not willing to make this easy for them. "Family," her mother said softly. "Having our daughter in our lives, seeing her happy. We've been terrible parents, Diana. We've tried to control you rather than support you, and we've pushed you away in the process." "I'm not coming back to Foster Pharmaceuticals," Diana said firmly. "If that's what this is about." "It's not," her father said. "Your path is your own, but we would like to support Hope Bridge. We're prepared to make a substantial donation, no strings attached. And I've been in conversation with several other pharmaceutical companies about participating in your programs." Diana looked at Connor, who squeezed her hand gently. This was her decision. "Why now?" she asked. "What changed?" Her parents exchanged a glance. "Emma," her mother admitted. "She's been talking to us, making us see things differently. And then your father had a health scare last month. Nothing serious, but enough to make us reevaluate priorities. I realized," her father said, "that I was on the verge of losing my daughter over pride and stubbornness. And that the company I'd built had become something I wasn't sure I was proud of anymore. You had the courage to walk away and start over. I respect that more than you know." Diana felt tears threatening. This was what she had wanted, not the approval of her choices so much as her parents actually seeing her, understanding her. I don't know if we can fix everything that's been broken, she said carefully. We don't expect to fix everything overnight, her mother said, but we'd like to try. If you're willing. Deanna looked at Connor again. He gave her a small nod, supportive of whatever she decided. Okay, she said finally, we can try. But things are different now. I'm different. My life is different. You need to accept that. We do, her father said. And Connor, I hope you can forgive an old man's stupidity. Deanna loves you, and that should have been enough for us from the start. Connor's expression softened slightly. I appreciate that, sir. I love your daughter very much. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure she's happy and supported in whatever she wants to do. I can see that now, her father said, and I'm grateful for it. The dinner that followed wasn't perfect. There were awkward moments and careful navigation around sensitive topics. But it was better than Diana had expected, easier than the last time. Her parents asked Connor about his work with genuine interest. They discussed Hope Bridges programs without criticism. They even laughed a few times, tentative but real. As they were leaving, her mother hugged Deanna tightly. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I should have said that a long time ago. In the truck driving home, Deanna was quiet, processing everything. That was unexpected, she finally said. People can change, Connor said, if they want it badly enough. You think they really have changed? Or is this just temporary? I think they're trying. That's what matters. The rest will take time. Diana leaned her head against his shoulder. How did I get so lucky finding you in the middle of the worst day? I don't think it was luck. I think it was timing. Both of us needed something we didn't even know we were looking for. Over the following months, Deanna's parents kept their word. Foster Pharmaceuticals made a substantial donation to Hope Bridge and actively participated in several programs. Her father even appeared at a fundraiser, speaking about the need for the industry to do better. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was progress. More importantly, her parents made an effort with Connor. Her father invited him to golf, an overture that Connor accepted despite never having golfed in his life. Her mother included him in family events and stopped making subtle comments about his background. Emma joked that Diana had accomplished the impossible, making their parents actually flexible. Wedding planning became the focus as spring arrived. Diana wanted something intimate, meaningful, not the society spectacle her mother initially pushed for. They compromised on a small ceremony at the theater, the space where Connor had proposed. It feels right, Diana told him, standing on the stage one afternoon while looking at seating options. Getting married here, where you built something beautiful. Where we both learned that building something meaningful is more important than maintaining something hollow. Getting philosophical on me, Foster? It's going to be Nash soon, she corrected, and the smile he gave her made her heart flip. Yeah, it is. The wedding took place on a perfect Saturday in May. The theater was decorated simply, white flowers and natural light streaming through the restored windows. Deanna wore a dress that was elegant without being overdone, her hair loose around her shoulders. Connor wore a suit that fit perfectly, looking handsome and a little nervous. Emma was her maid of honor. Connor's younger brother stood up as his best man. Deanna's parents sat in the front row, her mother dabbing at tears, her father looking uncomfortable with emotion but present and trying. Connor's mother beamed, having gained not just a daughter-in-law but a friend in Deanna. The ceremony was short and heartfelt. They had written their own vows, promises about building a life together, supporting each other's dreams, choosing love every single day even when it was hard. I promise to believe in you, Deanna said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks, the way you believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. I promise to build something beautiful with you, not just a marriage but a life that matters. I promise to be your partner in everything, Connor replied, his hands warm around hers. To support your dreams and celebrate your victories and remind you how strong you are when you forget. I promise to love you exactly as you are while helping you become everything you want to be. When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in applause. Diana felt joy so complete it was almost overwhelming. This was right. This was exactly where she was supposed to be. The reception was held in the theater's main hall, casual and warm. No assigned seating, no formal speeches, just good food and better company. Diana danced with her father, who whispered another apology and told her she looked beautiful. She danced with Connor, who held her close and told her he was the luckiest man alive. "I love you," she said against his shoulder. "I love this life we're building. Me too. And it's just getting started." They honeymooned in a cabin in the mountains, 2 weeks of peace and privacy and long conversations about the future. What they wanted, where they were going, how they would balance work and life and dreams. "I want kids," Diana admitted one night, curled up next to him in front of the fireplace. "Not right away, but eventually. Is that something you want?" "Yeah," Connor said, running his fingers through her hair. "I want to build a family with you, teach our kids about integrity and hard work and caring about things that matter. They'll be so loved," Diana said softly, "so supported in whoever they want to be. Unlike certain people's childhoods." Exactly unlike certain people's childhoods. When they returned from the honeymoon, Hope Bridge had continued growing in their absence. The staff had handled everything smoothly, proof that Diana had built something sustainable. But she was happy to be back, diving into work with renewed energy. Connor's company secured a contract for a major hospital renovation, his biggest project yet. They celebrated with takeout in Hope Bridge's office, Diana teasing him about becoming a corporate sellout. "It's a hospital, not a hedge fund," he protested. "Still building things that help people. I know, I'm proud of you, this is huge. Not as huge as what you're doing. Hope Bridge helped over 1,000 people last quarter, Diana. 1,000 people who can afford their medications now because of you." She leaned across the desk to kiss him. "Because of us. I couldn't do any of this without you." 2 years into their marriage, Diana discovered she was pregnant. She told Connor by leaving a positive pregnancy test on the bathroom counter with a bow on it. Watching from the doorway as he processed what he was seeing, his whoop of joy probably woke the neighbors. He picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby." Pregnancy was both wonderful and exhausting. Diana worked up until the last possible moment, determined to see Hope Bridge through a major expansion before taking maternity leave. Connor was simultaneously excited and terrified, reading every parenting book he could find and baby-proofing their house months too early. Her mother threw her a baby shower, an elegant affair that managed to be both sophisticated and genuinely warm. Diana's former colleagues from Foster Pharmaceuticals attended, along with the Hope Bridge staff and Connor's crew. It was a strange mix of people from different worlds, but they all came together to celebrate new life. "You look happy," Emma said, watching Diana open gifts. "Really, truly happy." "I am. Sometimes I can't believe this is my life, that I almost settled for something so much less because I was afraid to disappoint people." "You were never going to disappoint anyone worth caring about," Emma said. "We love you, the real you." Diana went into labor on a Tuesday evening, 3 days before her due date. Connor drove her to the hospital with impressive calm, despite gripping the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. Labor was long and hard, but Connor stayed with her through all of it, holding her hand and telling her she was strong and amazing. Their daughter was born just after sunrise, tiny and perfect and screaming her displeasure at the world. Diana held her and felt her heart crack open with love so fierce it was frightening. "She's beautiful," Connor whispered, tears streaming down his face. "She looks like you." "She has your nose," Diana said, laughing through her own tears. They named her Hope, after the bridge Diana had built between her old life and her new one. Hope Nash, a name that represented everything they had overcome and everything they were building together. Diana's parents came to meet their granddaughter that afternoon. Her mother held Hope with surprising tenderness, and her father's eyes were suspiciously bright. "She's precious," her mother said. "Absolutely precious. You're going to be wonderful parents." "We're going to try," Diana said. "Learn from both good examples and bad ones." Her father flinched slightly but nodded. "We made mistakes with you and Emma. I hope you'll let us do better with Hope, be the grandparents she deserves." "I'd like that," Diana said honestly. "She should know her family, all of it." Bringing Hope home was terrifying and magical. The first few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and constant worry. Connor proved to be a natural father, patient and gentle, and completely unfazed by diapers or spit up. He would walk Hope around their house at 3 in the morning, singing old construction songs in his off-key baritone until she fell asleep. Diana watched them together and felt overwhelming gratitude. This was her family. Not the one she had been born into, though she was grateful for the reconciliation there, but the family she had chosen, built from love and trust and mutual respect. Hope Bridge continued operating with Diana working part-time from home. She had hired an excellent deputy director who managed daily operations, allowing Diana to focus on strategic planning and major initiatives. It was a better balance, giving her time with Hope while still pursuing the work she was passionate about. On Hope's first birthday, they threw a party at the theater. The stage where Connor had proposed and where they had married now held a toddler-friendly celebration, complete with a smash cake and too many presents. Both families attended, Diana's parents and Connor's mother getting along surprisingly well as they doted on their granddaughter. "This is nice," Emma said, watching the scene. "Everyone together, no drama, just celebrating." "It's more than nice," Diana said. "It's everything I wanted but didn't think was possible. You made it possible, by being brave enough to choose what you wanted over what everyone expected." Diana looked at Connor, who was helping Hope open a present while his brother recorded video. She looked at her parents, laughing at something Connor's mother said. She looked at the theater around them, the space Connor had built, the community he had helped create. And she looked at Hope, her daughter, the physical representation of the love she and Connor shared. "I got lucky," Diana said. "No," Emma corrected. "You got brave. There's a difference." 2 years later they welcomed a son, James Connor Nash. If Hope had been a surprise in her intensity, James was a surprise in his calm. He was an easy baby, content and smiley, balancing out his more dramatic older sister. Diana's parents were fully involved grandparents now, babysitting regularly and showing up for every milestone. Her father had stepped down as CEO of Foster Pharmaceuticals, installing new leadership with a mandate to prioritize ethical practices alongside profits. The company partnered extensively with Hope Bridge, a collaboration that benefited both organizations. Connor's construction company thrived, taking on increasingly ambitious projects. But he never lost sight of his roots, still doing pro bono work for community organizations and making sure his crew was well paid and well treated. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they returned to the theater alone, having left the kids with Connor's mother for the night. They stood on the stage where they had married, remembering. "Do you ever regret it?" Connor asked. "Walking away from your old life?" "Never," Diana said without hesitation. Not for a single second. Do you regret taking a chance on a soaking wet woman who looked like she was having the worst day of her life? That was the best decision I ever made. Well, second best. The best was asking you to marry me. Deanna wrapped her arms around him. My family was wrong about you, about us. They thought I was throwing my life away. Turns out I was just starting to actually live it. They came around because love proved them wrong. Because what we built together was stronger than their doubts and disapproval. Because we refused to let anyone else define what our relationship could be. Connor kissed her, soft and sweet. Here's to many more years of proving people wrong. Here's to building beautiful things together. 10 years into their marriage, Hope Bridge had expanded to serve 7 states. Deanna had been featured in national publications, received humanitarian awards, and become a respected voice in healthcare advocacy. But her proudest moments weren't the accolades or recognition. They were the letters from families who could afford life-saving medications because of her work. The thank you notes from parents who no longer had to choose between medicine and food. The statistics showing thousands of lives improved because she had been brave enough to walk away from comfort and build something meaningful. Connor's company had grown too, completing landmark restorations and new construction projects throughout the region. But he still came home every night for family dinner, still coached Hope's soccer team and helped James with homework. Success hadn't changed him, hadn't made him into someone unrecognizable. He was still the man who had offered a ride to a stranger in the rain. Their kids were growing up with a different understanding of wealth and success than Deanna had. Hope was passionate about social justice, already talking about becoming a lawyer to help people. James loved building things with his hands, following his father around construction sites whenever possible. They knew their family history, both the privilege and the mistakes. Deanna and Connor made sure of that, wanting their children to understand that privilege came with responsibility. Deanna's parents were in their 70s now, retired and mellowed with age. They spent weekends with the grandkids and supported Hope Bridge's fundraisers. Deanna's relationship with them would never be uncomplicated, too much history for that. But it was real and honest in a way it had never been before. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Connor surprised Deanna with a renewal of their vows. Same theater, same stage, but this time with their kids standing beside them and a decade and a half of life lived together behind them. 15 years ago, Connor said, his voice echoing in the space he had built. I promised to build something beautiful with you. I had no idea how beautiful it would be. You've made me a better man, Deanna. You've given me a family, a purpose beyond just work, and more love than I ever imagined possible. Deanna was crying openly. You saved me, she said. Not from anything external, but from myself, from a life of following someone else's script. You showed me what it meant to live authentically, to choose love over approval, to build something that actually matters. I would choose you again and again and again. Hope was crying too, which made James uncomfortable until Emma handed him tissues for his sister. Deanna's parents held hands, her mother dabbing at her eyes. Connor's mother beamed at them with pure joy. They kissed to thunderous applause from their assembled loved ones. This time when they danced, Hope and James joined them on the floor, a family united by choice and love. Later that night, after the celebration ended and the kids were asleep at Emma's house, Deanna and Connor walked through the empty theater. They had first come here when it was a ruin being restored. Now it was alive with possibility, hosting community events and performances, exactly what Connor had envisioned. Thank you, Deanna said suddenly. For what? For being stuck in traffic near that coffee shop 15 years ago, for stopping to offer a ride. for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Connor pulled her close. I didn't save you, Deanna. You saved yourself. You made the hard choices, fought the difficult battles, built something extraordinary. I just had the privilege of being there while you did it. We did it together. Yeah, he agreed, kissing the top of her head. We did it together, and we're going to keep building together for the rest of our lives. Diana looked around the theater, this beautiful space that represented so much of their story. The restored Art Deco details spoke of honoring the past while creating something new. The modern infrastructure hidden beneath classic beauty reminded her that it was possible to respect tradition while embracing change. And the community it served, the lives it touched, reflected everything she and Connor believed in. Her family had been wrong about Connor. They had seen his background instead of his character, his bank account instead of his values. They had assumed she was making a mistake, throwing away her future for infatuation. But love had proven them wrong. The life she and Connor built together was richer than anything her parents had envisioned for her. Not rich in the way they measured, though Hope Bridges' success had brought its own financial stability. Rich in meaning, in purpose, in authentic connection. Diana Foster Nash had walked away from a legacy built on pharmaceutical profits and social standing. She had chosen instead to build a legacy of compassion, integrity, and love, and in doing so, she had found everything that truly mattered. "What are you thinking about?" Connor asked, watching her face. "Happy endings," Deanna said, "and how they're really just happy beginnings. Every day with you is a new beginning, a new chance to build something beautiful. That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said to me." She laughed and took his hand, leading him toward the exit. "Come on, let's go home." Home was a house they had designed together, not the mansion Deanna grew up in or the warehouse Connor had lived in when they met. It was something uniquely theirs, filled with memories and love and the beautiful chaos of raising children. It was paid for not by trust funds or inheritance, but by honest work and shared dreams. As they drove through the city lights, Diana reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The rainy day when she had accepted a ride from a stranger. The family dinner that shattered her carefully maintained facade. The board meeting where she had chosen integrity over obligation. The moment Connor had proposed on the stage of his rebuilt theater. The births of their children, the reconciliation with her parents, the slow, steady growth of everything they were building. Her family had disapproved because they feared she was making a mistake. They had measured Connor against their own narrow definitions of success and found him lacking. They had predicted disaster, heartbreak, regret. They had been completely, wonderfully wrong. Connor was pulling into their driveway now, the porch light glowing warm against the darkness. Through the window, Diana could see the photos lining the mantel. Their wedding day, Hope's birth. James learning to walk, family vacations and ordinary moments elevated by love. "Home, sweet home," Connor said, squeezing her hand. "Yeah," Deanna agreed, her heart full. "Home, sweet home." And as they walked together through the front door of the life they had built, Deanna knew with absolute certainty that every choice, every struggle, every moment of doubt had been worth it. Love had proven her family wrong. But more importantly, love had proven her right, right to choose authenticity over appearance, right to follow her heart, right to build a life that mattered. The CEO they had disapproved of, the construction worker they had dismissed, had created something more valuable than any pharmaceutical empire. They had created a family built on respect and trust, a love that deepened with each passing year, and a legacy that would extend far beyond profit margins or social standing. Diana Foster Nash had walked away from everything to find the only thing that truly mattered. And she had never looked back.